Yeah, I'm just going to show you about this these machines. The washing machine manufacturers put brushes in their motors, and it's very easy to predict the length of the life of the brushes. They're like a fuse. When the fuse burns out, you need a serviceman, you need a replacement, or you need to spend hundreds of pounds on spares or a spare motor. It is so easy for them to actually just put a brushless motor in like everyone else does and stop this stupid brush wear issue, giving the washing machine 4 or 5 years life. It's a cynical inclusion in the machine, which they use to force you to get more work done on the machine. So what I'm going to say is watch the video. It shows you about this Bosch Neff motor, and I hope you find it interesting. So here it goes.
Just a quick video. I'm repairing this Neff washing machine. It's actually a washer dryer, and a few months ago it stopped spinning, so I took it out, cleaned the brushes. The brushes were quite worn, but I thought, well, they need doing. I'll clean it and put it back, and to my surprise it worked, even though the brushes seemed to be making contact with the commutator okay. Down in here, look, you can see there's the commutator that the brushes rub on. Spin it round, you see it? You can see it's a little gnarly, but it's smooth, and it's got a few grooves in it. It's quite rough. It really ought to be turned up, but I think it will wear flat. But I just thought I'd show you about the brushes, because these are the brushes I've taken out. So the brushes are in these housings, which I'll show you in a moment, but there's the worn out brush, and it was contacting and was sprung loaded but not running, so it'd be interesting to see whether this fixes the problem. But you can see the brush. But if I take out, show you a new brush, you can see that's how much it's supposed to be. So all of that has worn away on the commutator, all that length there. You can see there's my finger in comparison, and the other one's got nothing left. It's gone. It's only sticking out that far. It's fully released, but it's out of whack. And what happens to all that black carbon dust? Well, it ends up down there underneath the dishwasher on the floor. That's all the carbon from the brushes that's come out of the motor. You know, in this age of brushless motors, and people like LG don't have brushes in their motors, you'd think they would do away and divorce themselves away from this old-fashioned brushed motor, which is a you know, if you read everywhere, it's a problem on these machines. Okay, so we'll find out in a moment what actually fixes the problem. But the real brushes for this one, where are they? That's the housing from the real brush, the brushes, the genuine brushes that came out of here. But I couldn't find any brushes to fit this. So I chose some which looked almost identical, with the exception that the connection's coming out the back. On this one you can see the connection comes up inside because it's bent over at 90 degrees. And on this one it's coming straight out the back. Otherwise the actual brush is the same, but if you look carefully at them... Oh, incidentally, the difference was that these were like £5 a pair and these were like £20 a pair. So I bought some that looked the most similar and thought, well, I can save some money. But if you look at it, where the contact comes out of the back, you can see they actually, if I put the contacts on both sides, you can see these have been cut in an opposite direction. So this one's got the angle of the commutator one way, and this has got the angle of that one that way. But I found by just taking this tag and bending it upright, it fits the housing. So it's identical brush housing, same length and everything else. So if we just turn that tag 90 degrees, take the brush out, swap it over and put it back in the old housing, then it all goes back together. And these little windings from the field windings which go on through the commutator, it's a series wound motor, go up inside there and plug in okay. So yeah, you can use the cheap brushes, but you might need to bend that 90 degrees so it goes up inside, so you can plug in there. Otherwise it will try and plug in the end, and this little wire isn't long enough, right? But generally, very poor thing. It seems to be Bosch and Neff. A lot of people use this motor. When the brushes wear out, presumably it goes into scrap. So it's a shame. But when I put it back together, they didn't seem to be completely warm. But when I put it back together, I'll show you it working if it's fixed the problem. But it's very simple. You just, on the back of this machine, where are we around the back? There's just a series of screws. I've took these off, but I didn't need to take the top off, and I didn't need to take these out because the back panel hooks under these little hooks down here. You can see that hook. But actually you just need to take the screws around the perimeter out and then just lift that over the hook and the whole back panel drops off, and then you can pull the belt off just by turning the wheel, and the belt will come off easy. So I'd imagine you'd be able to easily understand how to take the thing off and put them back. And to hold in the motor, if I can find the bolts, should have done this. The motor sits in there like that on these 4 bosses. There's 2 bosses there with screws in to hold the motor in place. This screw goes in the front of that boss to clamp the motor onto these 2 bosses. And if we look further underneath, you can see the other 2 bosses there and up there. So you slide the motor in onto these bosses and then you just put the bolts on. It's very easy. So it's literally just a 5-minute job to get the motor out and probably 10 minutes to change the brushes. But a tip, if you want to buy the cheap brushes, I'll show you a picture of what's on the bag. They were for a different machine, but they were much cheaper. One moment, I'll just stop and find the paperwork. So there's the spares parts. It was 2 sets of brushes. That's 4 brushes for £12.25 plus VAT. So it's basically £7 a set compared to 20 odd quid for the ones with just the contactor on the other side. And the brushes are identical. You can just bend the spade up. And if I just give you a refresh what the machine looks like, it's an inbuilt Neff washer dryer. Do you recognise that? But I'm guessing that motor's used on a lot of them. And the motor part number, if you need it, is here. Let's turn this round so you can get it up the right way. Yeah, that's the motor number, all right? The other markings on this thing. Oh, there's another set of markings around here. And I think that's just the approvals, actually, the spec of the motor, which you can see as well. So cheap brushes. So really, hopefully it's going to be a £7 repair, but we'll find out. I'll spin her up in a minute and see what happens. But this is about 4 years old and there's 3 people living in the house, so it's not really that old. Yeah, she's going, so it was the brushes. One thing you will notice, until the brushes bed in, you'll get this evil whistle for the first few washes until the actual brushes and the con learn to love each other again. But it's working, it's spinning. Obviously keep your hands clear. So that's a way. It's a £7 repair for the brush problem on your Neff washer dryer. As I say, this motor is used widely on a load of different models, so instead of buying the expensive brushes, you can modify the cheap brushes, which are exactly the same but just have the connector oriented differently. So anyway, that's the end of the video. If you'd like to subscribe to the button down there to encourage me to make more videos, I hope you found that useful.